Chag Sameach, everybody. It's almost Passover, and I'm here with my friend David Ponet, who is also the School for Creative Judaism's philosopher in residence. And we are here with some horses and some other philosophical friends nearby, including our friend over there, Lady Liberty, who is, I think, meant to be something of a muse for us as we muse on the topic of freedom. You people ready? Here we go. David, if you want to take off your mask, you can. You're at liberty to do so.
That is liberating.
Yes. So we are going to try and discuss a certain question. And here's the question that I want to pose for all of you as we start. Okay? To you as well. The question is, you are now entirely at liberty to do whatever it is you want. You're completely free, totally free. Yeah? What are you going to do? You got that freedom? What are you going to do with it? That's our guiding question here. So, David, why don't you kick us off with some reflections on what some people either today or in the past have thought about this?
Yeah. It's actually a really difficult question, Misha. I think we in our lives we say, I want to be free. I want to be freed from this, from that. I want to be free of this pandemic. I'm sick of being locked up at home and not getting to go to school every day and hang out with my friends. And so I guess when talking about what people have meant by this question and where they've gone with it, there are many directions you can go. But one direction is, I want to be liberated from my current reality. I'm locked at home and I can't hang out with my friends. I want to be liberated from that so that I can be in a different kind of reality. Or I work all day, every day, and I want to be freed from my obligation to work.
That sounds good. Doesn't that sound pretty good? Or liberated from school, liberated from whatever it is that we really can't stand. Like this guy, look, he really wants to be liberated, I believe. I'm not sure from what. So, David, you've taught me in the past about Isaiah Berlin. What did he have to say about these types of questions?
So Sir Isaiah, as he came to be called, he separated the concepts of liberty into two overarching themes. One, what he called negative liberty, and the other, what he called positive. So by negative, it was something about what I was just talking about, what we were saying. I want to be freed from the obligation to go to school every day. I want to be freed from the obligation to do homework or to clean up my room or whatever it is, take care of my kids. But then there's something that he called positive liberty.
What's that?
And that is a freedom to do something. So it's the sense that if there's not an affirmative idea that guides our enactment of freedom, then it's not almost a full freedom. And so I want to be free to paint. I want to be free to be an amazing basketball player. And that's how I self-actualize as a human being, by painting canvases, by shooting hoops, by playing the violin, whatever it may be, but it's anchored in this idea that in order to be free, I have to be doing something. So it's not just liberation from, but it's freedom to.
Right. Okay. And so that brings me. Let's make our way over here to some other expressions of freedom. That puts me in mind of Arendt and Hannah Arendt and her description of freedom, because to Hannah Arendt, as I'm sure many of you know, freedom was a big question. She was caught by the Nazis and put in a camp in France, and then liberated and brought to the United States, and spent the rest of her life trying to define this question: what is freedom? What is it? And so I always define this as, when I teach it to the kids, I usually define it as action in the public sphere. Freedom is action in the public sphere. Is that right, or am I kind of smushing her thoughts?
No, I think that is right. I think it begs the question, though: what do we mean by action, and what do we mean by public sphere? But I, to say a little bit about that, it's something about, it involves doing things with other people, right? So it's public. If I'm alone in my office or in my room or in my cell or in my thoughts doing something, that's not her definition of freedom.
So posting something on Facebook, is that like, I'm very upset by police violence or whatever it is, and I'm posting on Facebook, is that action according to
I don't think it quite rises to the level of action. Action has to do with acting in concert with other people, forming pacts, creating something new. She's big into this idea of creation. She loves the moment of the American Revolution and the founding period, because they got to act in concert. They were being heard, seen and seeing others. So there's also this idea that you have to be heard and seen just as you have to hear and see others. So there's this real interactive, communicative dimension to it, and the element of creation, of founding something. And that has something to do with what action is and with that freedom. But it is really, I think it's anchored also in this idea of starting something new, what she calls a principle of natality.
Natality, right. We are born, and because we are born and we're new, we can end up making things like this, or maybe things like that, or those horses, or all kinds of things. We really have no idea what will happen. Since we are born, that lion up there, if you can see him, could conceivably in our lives jump down at some point, which reminds me of the way my dad always says. My father always says in the Passover, in Passover Seders, my dad always says, maybe this time Pharaoh will win. You know what I mean? So there are possibilities of that. But what you're saying about what David was just saying about acting together, that's very interesting to me, because in Judaism we have this notion of God appearing whenever two people come together or more. First 10, then they say, well, even 3, and then they say even 2. But it's like that summoning of God that happens. That's the type of thing that happens in free situations. What about God in all this? What does God have to do with freedom, do you think?
I mean, a great question, and I don't have an easy answer. Because I could see it in a couple ways. You could say God is the condition for freedom, but in another formulation, God is the restriction on freedom.
Oh yeah.
Right? If we have a God that is all powerful, then where is the space for freedom? On the other hand, if we accept that freedom is a positive thing, and that more freedom is better than less freedom, or some freedom is better than no freedom, and we accept that God is a good God, a benevolent God, so then we can't really have a situation where there's a God and no freedom, right? Because that would be a malevolent God. So there's got to be some space for the two, and maybe, and of course, I mean, Misha, I'm sorry to bring this up, but it makes me just ask you back, what is God? Yeah. When we say, what is the role of God? But maybe
Uh-oh.
we taste God in the experience of freedom. Maybe it's an encounter with God. This principle of natality that Arendt comes back to is, in a way, it's not the direction she takes it, but it sounds mystical in some ways.
Yes.
It's about, prime movement.
Okay. All right. Well, since you challenged the rabbi here, I will say that what I've been thinking, and I'm going to take us over here to come. Let's go end this little summoning of God next to this rather ugly, to my mind, depiction of the Statue of Liberty, but we're going to end it right under her. Here's what I have to say about that. I've been contemplating the notion of God as freedom. Yeah? God is freedom. And that notion being not simply a benevolent good thing, but a rather dangerous notion. A rather dangerous thing. Because freedom, when we came out of the Red Sea and all of that kind of freedom manifested, it was a moment of danger, because freedom cannot be only for me, but not for you. It can't really be that, I don't think. Just like God can't be, just within this one little thing, but not for everything. And so if we want a moment of freedom like we are seeking on Passover, we're actually opening the doors for all kinds of things to happen. And if we're talking about this moment now during pandemic, then I would say also, we don't know what's about to happen, and it's very exciting, and but there's a sense of, there's a palpable sense of, I really don't know what will happen. And that, I would say, is a good space for natality.
Well said, Misha. And but there's something about the uncertainty and the indeterminacy of freedom that is linked to God, because it's also, in a sense, it's a taste of the infinite. Right? When we don't know what lies before us, the possibilities are infinite. That's scary. It's also exciting.
Yes.
Wow. And then the moment, in a sense, the moment you make a decision, right? If you think about it, I stand before an infinite possibilities, and then I have to choose a direction. It's terrifying to make that choice, because in a sense I'm killing the infinite. So it's almost like a crime of cosmic proportion. But
Wow.
Then the moment I do that, again, I'm suddenly faced with the infinite again.
In every moment, we have the encounter between the infinite and the finite, I would say. And this moment is one in which we try and be, for a short moment, for a week even, we try and be with and in the infinite. Thank you very much, David. Toda rabba.
Thank you. Toda lachem.
Thank you very much, Lady Liberty, for your inspiration. Yes, thank you to this world and to the Brooklyn Museum, and to all of you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.